As well as your footwork being important in terms of how you're engaging with the pedals and how you're creating power, your body position on the bike and how you move around the bike is going to really affect how well and effectively you climb. We want traction on the back, but we don't want the front wheel lifting off, losing its direction and control. Many people may have experienced how when pedaling hard up a hill and putting in a few power strokes, the front wheel gets very, very light. We need to adopt a position where our body mass is being used to keep both wheels on the ground, grip at the back and no lift at the front. Two things we can look at here. One is simply just dropping the wrists and tucking the elbows in is going to stop us from pulling on the bars as we pedal hard. As you push into a pedal stroke, it's easy to lean your body weight back slightly and end up pulling on the bars. By dropping the wrists as we push hard, it's very much more difficult to actually cause front wheel lift. Dropping the wrists and tucking the elbows in and dropping those elbows naturally brings your chest and chin forward. That's going to keep some weight over the front end of the bike. The steeper it gets, the further forward on the bike I'm going to be. Which brings us to how we're engaging with the saddle. On a long slow climb of a low gradient, we might actually shuffle back in the saddle slightly, although leaning forward a bit to counter that, and that will give us a longer push across the top of the pedal strokes and a longer power bulge in the pedal stroke. As it starts to get very much steeper, we're going to have to shuffle right forward to the horn of the saddle, and again we'll look at that a bit later on something a bit more steep, but using the horn of the saddle isn't particularly comfortable, but it enables me to get my weight far enough forward but also maintain some down pressure on the back wheel for that all important traction. So as I climb and the gradient changes, I need to start bringing my weight forward, maybe onto the horn of the saddle, dropping those wrists, keeping some weight over the front of the bike for that all important traction at the back. If I lean back at this point, the front wheel with every power stroke starts to lift. Standing up or sitting down on a nice smooth surface with relatively good grip, I can still maintain traction. When it comes to looser terrain, mud, wet roots, loose rocks, I need to be far more careful about how I'm climbing. And standing up may no longer be an option. For a short, sharp climb, getting up on the pedals and powering in a more stamping method can get you by, but on a longer, slower climb, there's no need to carry your whole body weight through your legs by standing up and using a lot of quad. We're going to sit down, rest up a bit and concentrate on that pedalling. Here where the terrain is far looser, we've got a lot of loose stone on top. I'm going to have to be a bit more careful about how I deliver that power through the chain and through the pedals and create that drive. If I stamp too much, the wheel spin is going to start occurring, and you don't get many chances of wheel spin before you've stopped, you're stationary, and it's time to get that foot down. What I need to achieve is smooth power delivery, keeping the power on the pedals constantly, and a nice smooth drive. There may be times when I know I can start to feel the ground giving below me. It's a case of easing off, changing gear and making sure that we're gaining forward motion and not wheel spin. If I attempt this climb in too big a gear, the wheels are pretty soon going to start to spin below me. It's going to be very difficult to get any traction, and your foot down is your only option. We'll go back again and select a more appropriate gear. Perhaps use a bit more correct body positioning and smoother delivery of power, and see if we can't get to the top this time. Having engaged a more sensible gear, the torque running through the chain is less, and although I'm having to put more pedal strokes in and I'm still getting some slight wheel spin, there's nowhere near as much, and I'm able to control the bike and keep on trucking. Obviously, starting from a standing start straight into a climb is not as easy as if you can carry some momentum. One of the ways of carrying more momentum into climbs is by looking further down the trail to spot them earlier. You'll have a better idea of when to change gear and when that gear change is going to be required. You'll also be able to see any features on the trail that are going to require more attention, but you're going to be far more better placed to make it all the way up to the top. The concentration ladder that we identified in an earlier article isn't only applied to downhills, equally so uphill. Think ahead of the bike, think next, next, next. There's no point in realising that my legs don't have the power to turn the cranks anymore, and then at last minute pinging through some gears and hoping that they change nice and smoothly. Don't be afraid of changing early and slowing down on the early part of the climb, but having that all essential bit of energy in your pocket to get you up and over the top. When it comes to concentration, I don't want to look to the very top of a climb, I want to look through it and beyond. Quite often climbs, we see people climbing, the front wheel just about gets to the top, and psychologically the rider thinks they've done the work, only to find that they haven't got enough juice to get over the top, and up and over the back they go if they carry on pedalling hard, or they stall, or don't make it all the way to the top. As I was climbing up there in the correct gear, even though I got a little bit of wheel spin on some of the looser stuff, I was able to feel the moment the wheel was starting to slide rather than grip, ease off the power momentarily, find some grip, and then smoothly apply more power again. Feeling is a big part of mountain biking. You want to be in tune with the trail and understand how your bike's interacting and feeling for that all-important moment of slip. Looking and projecting further ahead of the bike being important in terms of reaching your goal of the top of the hill. Much earlier on, a sensible rider or someone who doesn't live just for challenges is going to realise that the right hand side of the trail here has a much smoother surface, far less loose rock on it, and it's going to be a much easier climb. If you don't look far enough ahead, you can easily end up on the left hand side of this knuckle, and before you know it you're into all this loose rubble, which is going to make your climbing much harder. A lot of climbs will contain certain features, in this case some raised roots, where we need to have a bit of momentum, because if we power down at the wrong point we're definitely going to spin out. We've also got a fairly sharp switchback corner to negotiate. I need to put the gas on at the right time so that I've got the momentum to get up and around the corner through the steeper section, because if I try and apply too much in the way of torque here and too much pressure through the cranks and pedals, I'm going to spin out here and I'll never get up to my goal of up and around the corner. As I approach this section I need to raise the cadence, get a bit of momentum going, and going back to cornering I need to project through the corner, apply the pressure at the right time to allow me to carry onwards and upwards with little effort and no wheel spin.